Titter pigs, oh yeah. They're gonna talk about sweet, sweet RPGs. And it's the Titter Pigs, the RPG podcast. Am I getting paid for this one?
Hey listeners, welcome back to another episode of Titter Pigs. This is episode 53. We are back in the studio after a fantastic episode from 52 with our little pickup review of Weird Heroes of Public Access.
Yeah.
Scott, wow.
It was a good one. No, I'm gonna walk all over you. And in fact,
you sure are. I'm gonna walk on you.
I'm not going to name names or anything, but we did get a message from someone who was interested in us taking a look at their game and possibly talking about it. So we'll see about getting to that at a later date. But no, that was very, very kind of them. And to be perfectly honest, it is one I'd be interested in. Not a fly-by-night like the ones we got. Hey man, I'm just figuring out this card game. What could I send you something to look at? And I'm like, I don't know who you are,
right?
and I
don't have any interest in whatever it is you have to send us,
right? Yeah, I mean, but anyhow. Focus. So yeah, we're
laser focus.
I know. So speaking of, not speaking of, but we have an interview this episode. We have Avery Alder, who we had a very interesting and very enlightening conversation with. We were fortunate enough to have her come on the show. Had met her up at the CamCon Canadian convention up there. Spoke with her briefly. Participated in some of the things that we had there. And after a bit of time pulling back and forth, we finally sat down and had a great conversation. But
one thing that did come out of all of this, Scott learned what mountain time was.
Oh God, yeah, no,
because Avery's on mountain time, so it was great.
Two things we can get rid of: daylight savings time and mountain time. Just be East Coast. It's fine. But before we get into that, what is new with us? So, Keith,
Scott,
what's new with you since we last spoke?
I am plotting. That's plodding, not plotting, along with Daggerheart. I am playing in a semi-weekly regular game. As I've mentioned before, we are a couple of sessions in. Roz is doing a fantastic job running it with her story. She's mixing like elements from Symbaroum and some other things into it. I mean, she's doing a crazy good job at doing all of this stuff.
Cool.
I'm not totally sold on the game, the mechanics. I like what it's doing, but the reviewer in me is starting to want to try to like pick it apart. I'm not going into any kind of full review or anything, don't worry. But, the jury's still sitting there listening and they're not casting a verdict yet.
Right.
I'm going to play it through to the end and I'm going to see where I feel, probably sometime in January when we finish up the story arc.
Okay.
And because the story is great. The story that she is telling us and we are playing in as like super active participants is great.
Right.
And a lot of the mechanic elements are working. I just think there's a lot of I don't want to say busy work, but a lot of moving pieces.
Sure.
It's trying to wrap my head around some of it.
Yeah, well, that'll make a good episode in the future because I don't see myself getting to play it anytime soon. Although I think it's coming my way. So we're participating in a Secret Santa, and I threw it on there as one of potential picks. But the way the Secret Santa site works, not only does it tell you, hey, your Secret Santa got you something, it tells you who they got it from. So it literally tells you what you're getting.
Does it?
It does. So it's, but
I did not know that.
yeah. Well, now you do. But what we could do is obviously it can be a one-sided thing. I could question you about it and grill it, and then get your insight, and that'd be interesting to see how it goes. So, but yeah,
I'm totally down for that. But that's what I've been doing lately. What have you been up to?
Well, quite a few things, but I think one of the ones that stands out the most is the ongoing Impossible Landscapes campaign that I'm doing. It is an all-star crew. I may have mentioned it previously, but it is myself running it. We have Seth Skorkowski, who's participating. You may have heard of him.
I'm not familiar with that guy.
Well, I mean, he admitted he doesn't listen to this, so we don't need to worry about anything. But also Scott Dorward, of the good friends.
I do know that guy.
Yeah, you should. You probably edited some of his stuff. But of the good friends of Jackson Elias, we've got Alice. And Alice, I'm sure you're probably not listening. If you are, I'm sorry, I don't know your last name. But she is from, it's Dragons and Discourse, or Discourse and Dragons, one of the two. She's the one who runs an admittedly kind of a soap opera news channel for tabletop RPGs.
Cool.
She is delightful and wonderful and a fantastic fit. And let's see here. Then we also have Jared Logan. Jared Logan's part of the Glass Cannon podcast network. He runs a lot of their games for them. Comedian, actor, voice actor, I think. Just a ball of personality, and it's fantastic. And of course, our friend Adrian. I know you know.
Yep.
Adrian. Adrian does not do anything like the others as far as in the tabletop RPG sphere. But the one thing that he is a new father. So we're also juggling with that. I'm not saying, I'm not saying that he has fallen asleep during our sessions, but has come pretty close. So it is a raucous cast of people. And for those who are like, wow, I can't wait. Nope, this is not something that's being streamed or recorded. This is just for fun, behind the scenes, with no pressure, no cameras, no mics. So
Funsy games are great though. Everybody can let their proverbial hair down if they have it, like Scott Dorwood has hair and beard.
Right.
I don't. For those that don't see the video, I do have a mohawk now these days. So,
And I wouldn't call that pink.
No, the pink's washed out. I did have bubblegum pink, a week or so ago, but it's all like washing out because apparently gray hair doesn't dye very well when you do it.
No. Excuse me. But no, I mean, you played in the Impossible Landscapes that Bud ran for us, and they're still in the McAllister building, and and spoilers, they have not entered the night floors yet. So they're taking their own sweet time. They're doing a lot of things that we probably should have done when we went through it. So it's going to be interesting to see, when we get to our next session, which will be next Friday. So I
have the book and I'm reluctant to read it. So because I'm afraid to know how much we didn't do, because I know there's a ton of stuff we didn't do.
I will say this real quick before we get on to Avery is, for the most part, as far as part one, right? The McAllister building, there probably was a bit of prior research that we could have done to get a little bit more information before jumping in feet first. But I'm also not 100% reliant on my memory that Bud may have kind of, elbowed us right into the nitty gritty of it all. That we
Fair.
were kind of, we went from our meeting to the front doors and dove right into it
and into hell. Got it.
Right, exactly. And they've only interacted with two of the people who are still living in the building. One is it was a fantastic thing, and they're shipping him off to an insane asylum, and the other one will, and the other one we'll see, because it kind of concluded on that with our last meeting. So yeah, they're I mean, and it's a larger group too. I've got 5-6 people in it, so there's a lot of kind of, I'm going to go do this and I'm going to go do that going on. So there's a lot of shifts in between different various things. So it's
you got to pan the camera back and forth. Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, it's going to take a little longer. And, as much as I would just absolutely love to like do play reports for this, I couldn't.
Fair.
It's just
fair.
I mean, I can if it just straight like just what happened. But as far as the other players are concerned, no, we'll just leave that between us. So, but good times. So
good. I'm glad you guys are having a grand time with it. Mm-hmm. I want to get back to doing some Delta Green this year, whether playing or in 26. But we'll save that for another episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then why don't we go ahead and get into our wonderful interview with Avery Alder? We talk about her games. We talk about her attitude towards game design, and also some more insight into her passions and what it is that makes her games her own.
Let's do it. Hey listeners, we are back for our main segment. With us tonight, as we alluded to in the introduction, we have Avery Alder. Avery, welcome to Titterpigs.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Oh, you are very welcome. And thank you so much for taking the time. It took Keith and I a good amount of time to figure out how Mountain Time worked. As you could see by the email that we sent. So we're glad that you made it at the proper time and not the original time that I set it up for.
Because Scott was convinced that we were recording in an hour from now, not right now.
Hey, it's wonderful to have you here. And, as with all of our guests, we're here to talk about what you want to talk about. We talk about your games, talk a bit about, your history, what led you into creating these games, touch upon some of the subject matter, and maybe even, come across a bit of, advice or information for the burgeoning creators out there, who would want to kind of learn from, your successes and likewise, any, mistakes that may have come up because, none of us are perfect. But before that, you have accepted the indulgence of us of telling you the age-old question. As someone within the hobby who enjoys, games, RPGs, and other things, obviously you have an origin story. And hopefully it wasn't my parents just dropped me off at Walden Books and I bought Redbox. Hopefully it's more than that. But so, if you wouldn't mind, what was your introduction into gaming or gaming RPGs or whatever led you down the initial path?
Yeah, so I feel like there's a few different places that the origin story could start, but I think like the most cohesive version is that around the time that I was 8, I lived in a small town. We had exactly one interesting store. It was called Lester's Hobbies, and about 90% of it was remote-controlled airplane stuff, and that wasn't interesting to me, but the other 10% was like a weird hodgepodge of Magic cards, D&D books, and other kind of weird fantasy paraphernalia. Mm-hmm. And so I spent a lot of time kind of browsing that one single kind of like bookcase worth of stuff. For years, I bought Magic and I kind of sort of understood how to play it when I was, 10, 11. But for years, I would go to that store and I would flip through the D&D books and I would imagine what it would be like to play. And I kind of built up this understanding in my head about what D&D was going to be like. And like in parallel, my friends were doing the same, right? Mm-hmm. For years, we would go to that one bookcase at Lester's Hobbies. We'd peruse those books and we'd imagine what it would be like to play. And so finally, like after years of this, we buy the books. We decide who's going to be the dungeon master. We sit down and we try to play, and it's kind of a mess, right? None of us can agree on what the game is supposed to be, what play is supposed to look like or feel like. We get to the end of the session, and we're all 15, so of course the dungeon master is like, okay, and that's a wrap, and we immediately proceed to just tear him down, right? Like, what did he do wrong? How does he fundamentally not understand what Dungeons and Dragons is supposed to be? And then eventually he would throw up his hands and say, like, fine, why don't you do it then? And so then the mantle would be passed, and we just kind of rotated through ourselves, everyone attempting to run Dungeons and Dragons until it broke into infighting, and mutiny was declared. And we kind of went around in circles, really wanting to play this game that we built up in our head for years, and just really not quite understanding how it's supposed to come together. And you're both nodding your head, because like role-playing games, like it's a primarily oral tradition. Like, you kind of need somebody to show you the ropes.
Right.
And so very early on in my role-playing game career, started, browsing the internet, trying to learn more about role-playing game theory, trying to like decode these books that I'd spent all my allowance on.
Mm-hmm.
And that very quickly led me to The Forge, which was a forum that existed from like the very late 90s through to about 2005. I think technically it existed to 2012, but it was mostly a ghost town by the time it was officially shuttered.
Yeah.
And The Forge was a place where independent creators were coming together, and they were talking about role-playing game theory, role-playing game design, and role-playing game actual play. And they were designing games that really both were much more focused, so it was easier to wrap my head around what the play experience was supposed to be. But also there's a lot of conversations about like, how is this supposed to play and why? What are we attempting to do? And so from very early on in my role-playing game experience, I was reading the kind of discussions between game designers, thinking about what I would want my ideal role-playing game to be. And so kind of leapfrogged past the functional D&D experience that I'd been seeking straight into designing my own games.
Okay.
And so that's my origin story. I feel like a lot of my design sensibilities and play sensibilities are really like, they're shaped by what games were the new darlings of the Forge in late 2005, early 2006.
I mean that. Yeah, I mean it I wouldn't say it's a tale as old as time, but a lot of people like yourself who went through the funnel, so to speak, of the Forge, come out on the other end with this perception. It was looked upon as something different, something new, a different take. But then you have the other end of the old guard going, well, this is new and scary. So thus the branches begin to occur, because I'm not intimately, I was never part of the Forge. I was during my downtime when I had kids and things, but reading about it, seeing about it, it's as wonderful as the creative process occurred in the Forge, as you, I'm sure, are well aware. Creative process is not holding hands and skipping through the daisies. There's people who have ideas and whatnot, and so different forms and opinions went from there. GNS theory, but there's the community it became more than, at least this is my opinion, it definitely from there, it laid this foundation that it could be more than just these 6 or 7 companies who were holding the keys to the kingdom, and it allowed other people to express themselves differently than the traditional games. So, and it's interesting. It's interesting to look back. I'm curious. Did that also? Were you part of the whole Google Plus stage?
Yeah.
I missed those days.
I was part of the Google Plus kind of indie role playing game community, and I think that was my first experience of investing a lot of time and sense of community in a technology held by a major corporation who could just shutter it and completely collapse a community overnight if they felt like it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, that was a really beautiful moment, I feel like, where like the Forge had been very is very like a lot of intellectual posturing, a lot of
Yes.
bravado, a lot of needlessly self-righteous manifestos about games. And so in some ways it was really exciting.
You're right.
And in other ways it kind of like excluded a lot of people from the conversation. But now kind of like in the landscape we have now, where a lot of conversations feel really fleeting and ephemeral, right? They're like over, well, they used to be over Twitter, they're over Blue Sky or things like that. Google Plus was this kind of like, there's this moment where it really felt like you could have meaningful, interesting conversations about what role-playing games are supposed to be, the experiences that we're having, why we care about this stuff, why we like spend so many hours poring over these dense, complicated books.
Yeah.
And everyone felt like they were finding the conversations they wanted. So yeah, totally. Sorry to wax nostalgic there. The answer is yes. That was a very long-winded yes.
No. We'll put in "Glory Days" by Bruce Springsteen as we're having this conversation about it. But
I mean, I was in the. I never got into the Forge. That was like Scott. I kind of had some downtime there when my military time, and then my kids were young, and then I kind of got back into gaming. But as I was coming back into gaming, I was very big into the Google Plus days. And you're right, the sense of community there was fantastic. And I got in on Google Plus when it was in its early infancy and got to see it grow and then bloomed and blossomed. And almost overnight, it was gone.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Thank you, Google. I hate you, but I love you too at the same time. And nothing has come about to replace it. I mean, Facebook is not the replacement for Google, and Blue Sky is not the replacement for Google because it doesn't have that sense of community like Google Plus did.
Yeah. And
but
the other ones, Discord, everyone, the standard opinion is everyone just kind of branched off and they're in their little communities. There's intermingling, there's diplomats moving back and forth, so to speak. But, these meaningful conversations, as far as I'm concerned, at least when that has occurred for like Keith and myself and other people, they left these online formats and moved into these little conversations like we're having now. Or, when during lockdown, when there's an online chat called the Midchester Pub. It's just a bunch of creators from the UK, and we were lucky enough to be a part of that. And there was conversations going on in there. But again, it's not like we could provide a transcription sheet of what was going on. Once we signed off for the night, the conversation stopped.
It was fleeting. Like you said, it was ephemeral. It just
but
gone.
Someday, maybe my son's generation may find some other format like G+, or, well, let's be honest, they'll be in caves, trying to rediscover humanity. But
so
go ahead, Keith.
Let's move the conversation on though, because I want to. I'm under the impression your first official published game, and correct me if I'm wrong, was The Quiet Year.
It wasn't actually.
The
Quiet Year was published in 2012, 2013.
Yep.
But I actually first published a game in 2006.
Ooh, tell me more.
And so, so this game, because I didn't understand what SEO was, it was called Perfect.
Okay. See, I
Perfect
thought
RPG.
came
It's
out
really
later,
hard to corner that. So this is a game. It was kind of like a dark Victorian dystopian game about people who break laws in a intensely repressed and constrictive society.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of about like what is worth risking your safety and sanity for is kind of the premise, I guess. Okay. And so we're telling stories like similar to the kind of stories we see in V for Vendetta, Clockwork Orange, that kind of thing. And and it started design wise from this idea that like, what if your character sheet, rather than telling you all the cool things you can do, told you all the normal things you can't do. And so part of navigating the society was kind of basically taking on a number of vows they were called freedoms, and so you'd have the freedom of movement, that as long as your hands are bound together in a single glove at all times, when you're in public, you can travel freely between sectors. And so there's this kind of interesting design experiment, I think, with that, just to see like what is it like when you look at your character sheet and you think like rats. There's so many words on this sheet, and all of them make my life hard.
Right. Okay.
But then the other part of it was, describing the crimes your character commits and why they matter. Usually there's kind of like a slant towards rebellious self-expression or revolutionary action. And then we find out whether the inspectors track you down, apprehend you, and successfully brainwash you into being a better citizen.
Okay. Very cool. See, like I said, I thought Perfect came later after The Quiet Year, because there correct me if I'm wrong, isn't there a Perfect Revised?
Well, it's called Perfect Unrevised.
Unrevised, okay.
But yes, that is like the kind of the second edition of the game.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and then so that was the first game that I published, and then the second one that I published was Ribbon Drive, which is a structured freeform game about going on a road trip. So it's about road trips, soundtracks, and self-discovery is, I think, the tagline.
Oh, God.
And so part of how you play is that everyone... Okay, so now it's playlists, but at the time it was mix CDs. So everyone would make a mix CD. They would give it some kind of interesting theme throughout. They would title it. They'd bring the lyrics to the first two songs, and then the rules told you to collect the mix CDs, shuffle them, and select one at random. And then that would set up your road trip. The first song tells you what the trip is. The second song tells you who your characters are going to be. And then from that point forward, you're just playing the music, but you're always framing scenes based on what's playing and what the vibe is. So you'd have a really feel-good, folksy setup for your road trip. But then an hour in, suddenly we're like, okay, well, that playlist's over. Time to cue up it turns out doom metal is our thing now.
You're one buddy who loves Cannibal Corpse. You're like, oh God, all right, Steve, pop it in.
Exactly.
Oh my God,
that's great. I mean, that's like everyone kind of has their generational RPG in games such as this that deal with these more kind of realistic, but yet, just kind of. Spiritual is not the right term, but that kind of premise of how you remember your youth, so to speak. That's the role playing game of my 16 to 19 life, of just like it was music, road trips, playlists, arguing, and wonderful things such as that. That at that moment, you're not really realizing what you're experiencing at the time. So a game like that can kind of help refocus and appreciate those wonderful times and make you feel old and bad. Thank you, Avery.
No, it does have like a lot of nostalgia kind of built into the premise for people. It's one of my favorite things that I've designed. I think the mechanics are really elegant, but it's really hard to play at conventions.
Okay. And
it's also a really small game. So it's a really small book. It's one of those things that like, it doesn't see a lot of the kind of play that generates word of mouth.
Okay.
Right? Like convention play. It's
Sure.
not something you can really demo. But when you do get together to play it, people consistently like weep playing it. Like they're like, oh, I've learned to let go of my my trauma with my dad. And just because people love music, right?
Oh, God.
And role-playing games usually only leverage that for like background sound effects occasionally, but usually not even that, right?
Oh yeah.
And so being like, no, let's actually be inspired by music.
Yeah.
And let's see how that informs the stories we can tell.
Oh, one of my long-term goals is creating a game that I've been chipping away at based on Tom Waits' Swordfish Trombones album. And and I've always been a big, I could say every song of Tom Waits is its own scenario. I will, try not to create something from that. And that's true of a lot of artists out there, but, just the premise that music is just something that should set in the background of your game, I think doesn't give it enough credit for how it's influenced many games, and not just, the creation of games, but tables and sessions. I mean,
most
like
music is a story unto itself. So
yeah, I mean, you don't want Cannibal Corpse turned up to 50, but I mean, if you're having a good dystopian, sci-fi game, which, just everything is just shit, hell yeah, you want that inspiration playing in the background for 30 minutes at the most. But
so speaking of inspiration themes, right? Like, do you have any like overarching themes or even inspirational pieces, bits that kind of run through your game designs?
Absolutely, yeah. I find myself coming back to kind of a couple core themes really consistently. The first big one is community. The second big one is the collapse of civilization. And those kind of go hand in hand in my mind in an interesting way of like, what is interesting to me about post-apocalyptic settings isn't like, okay, now we have the world where we get the rugged individual with his leather jacket and his cool gun and his cool car. I'm like, we already have that in this world. What I'm actually interested in a post-apocalyptic setting is like, when all that's left is each other, how do we come together?
right.
Right.
So yeah, community, the collapse of civilization, identity, especially queer identity, and relationships. And so I tend to write a lot of games that are less focused on heroes who go on adventures and more focused on community members who have interpersonal drama.
Now, obviously, that's a foundation that you have, and a core aspect of the games that you design. But a lot of those topics, for certain people, could be construed as uncomfortable or things they're not interested in. Is this something that you kind of roll around when you're creating these games? Because obviously, these games are meant to be shared, and just because something is uncomfortable doesn't mean that you shouldn't try it, so to speak. Do you handle that with either okay, let me see if I can taper this a bit to get somebody to gain the trust of someone to come in and experience this, or is it the other aspect that some game designers have where it's like, hey, it's just not meant for you, and move on to something that you would rather play, or maybe it's just a little bit in between?
Yeah, I think it is a little bit of each one.
Okay.
One of my goals as a designer is always to make games that feel really approachable and accessible in different ways. But part of the reason that I am interested in that and I care so much about that, and I'm always looking at my designs like, how can I simplify this? How can I create more, bridges to different players? How can I create more scaffolding for getting up and running? Is because I also write games that are niche in subject matter, that ask a lot of their players a lot of the time in thinking about narrative structure.
Right.
One of the games that I wrote is a post-apocalyptic game about community, queer community. See, that's all the themes right there.
Sure.
But Dream Askew is a game it's diceless. There's no GM. It's a really simple system. And you're playing your character in a community and kind of following them around and seeing what drama emerges. So all of those mechanics are really simple. But that's because I'm asking people to do a lot of kind of heavy lifting in terms of like collaborative, emergent world building that isn't just about describing interesting post-apocalyptic stuff, but like thinking through big structural issues and how they would impact marginalized communities. So there's that kind of that really big picture structuralist thinking that's built into the game. That's a big ask of players.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I'm making that big ask, and I'm also like, and you also need to pull out your hypogeometric calculator because we're gonna get extremely in the weeds with the mathematics of this game. That's too many big asks, right?
Sure.
And so when I'm designing, I'm definitely thinking about how can I make my games as approachable as possible in as many ways as possible, so that I can also kind of free up the budget for making big asks of players in terms of either subject matter or how they think about their own role as storytellers.
Interesting. That approach, a lot of times that approach can happen organically, but it's dependent on the group, not the game. But having a game that, allows that spring point, I would assume, that makes it easier for people to approach that. And I'm not telling people every game needs to deal with these, it doesn't need to explore vulnerability, power dynamics, emotional tension, but it's nice to have that available if you want to do it. And sometimes, kicking down the door of a dungeon is great. It's comfort food. But sometimes, stepping away from a game and just going, wow, what happened? And talking about that with your group and your player and your GM is also, a fantastic experience and enlightening, in that regards. And like any good game design, at least in my opinion, what it does is it not only does it create this experience, but it also leads to other games, that you will eventually, well, this was neat. Now I want to go check out these other things. And then, the circle is complete in a certain way. And then
it's like a circle of life.
Yeah. Yeah. But still, again, there's just some nights where it's just like, I don't want to fucking do laundry or clean the house. I'm just going to kick down the dungeon and we're going to, walk out with a bunch of jewels and call it a day.
Fact.
That kind of thing.
Fact.
So
with,
go ahead,
no, Scott. Go ahead.
No. I mean, it was more just a general question. So in regards to that, looking at some of your games, especially, one looks, a lot of them are dealing with your own design, but of course, the other one, Monster Hearts, that utilizes the foundation of Powered by the Apocalypse. Do some of the games that you play or enjoy, I mean, that would generally be called like crunch. Are you just generally not a fan of, these extensive rules that, permeate through a lot of the games in the hobby? Or do you find that, like you said earlier, that these just don't lead to the dynamic that you're looking for in your games? But, if you're playing a game, you're like, sure, give me, 8 pages of 3.5 and I'll fill in everything for fun, but I have no interest in creating something for this.
Yeah. So one of my favorite games, one of my favorite role-playing games is Blades in the Dark.
Okay.
And that one is quite crunchy. Right? There's a flow chart for making just like a regular old action roll of like, I want to sneak past the guards. Yeah. It's like a full page flow chart, right? And I love that. I love the granularity and the inflection points that are possible in that kind of crunchy die mechanic, and that like really crunchy for a core mechanic. A lot crunchier than, roll a d20, add a bonus, try and get over 17.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, first of all, there's 11 steps. But I love that game. I love what that game makes possible. I play Magic for a couple years. I was like a competitive tournament grinder.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Okay.
I love a couple war games. War Machine was my favorite. I was a big Legion of Everblight player until the start of 4th edition. Okay. There's plenty of crunchy games that I really like.
Okay.
When it comes to doing my own design work, what I've noticed is that I am not a strong designer of crunch. Okay. Not that I don't have the capacity, but just I think that when I like look plainly at like, okay, what am I drawn to create and what am I actually good at creating? A lot of the time it is really focused, tight, elegant, self-contained games about kind of those core themes.
Right.
And thankfully, there are amazing designers doing like multi-decade life projects of creating a whole library to support a single dense, intricate kind of game that you can get lost in, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
And so I guess as a designer, I'm just like, okay, other people have that one. Dungeon crawling, like
True.
As a society, we have that on lock. I can just focus on designing what I think I'm actually good
There's
at.
new ones coming out every 2 days, but I mean, maybe they didn't get the memo.
But I think that's what she means. It's on lock,
Yeah.
so that allows her to explore the other areas that aren't on lock.
I know. I'm
just like Ken Height's next game, I'm sure, will be an investigation game, and it's a good chance that it's got a Cthulhu mythos theme splashed in there, because he's really good at designing those.
Sure.
Yeah.
And there'll be chapters of verbosity that you're just going to go, oh God, can I just get to the game?
Somebody
but no,
shoot me now.
but that's his wheelhouse, and we love Ken for that.
We do.
But no, there is that, and like I joked around earlier, his better half, Robin Laws, one day he'll get over missing that spot hidden roll. But until then, we will have Gumshoe to enjoy.
Yeah.
But so go ahead, Keith. I'm sorry. I stole the
No, you're
helm
good.
from
You're
you.
good. So I want to step back for a moment to the Dream Askew, Dream Apart book, because but not to the games themselves, but I do know that those games have collectively influenced other games in the hobby. Most notably, oh my God, why am I absolutely now brain farting on this?
Wanderhome, Going
That's
Rogue.
it. Yes, thank you,
Wanderhome.
Wanderhome.
Galactic.
The ENnie winning game. I bought it at Gen Con the day after it won the ENnie, or multiple ENnies.
I knew it. I just wanted to see you struggle.
Yes, thank you, Scott, thank you. So my question is, how do you feel about your game designs, the mechanics, your engines going on to influence other games and in derivative works? That's kind of like that's kind of huge.
Yeah, definitely. It really is. I think that earlier on in my trajectory as a designer, in probably the first full decade of doing game design, I was a lot more covetous or protective of my work.
Right.
It was hard to feel really free and loose and easy about that kind of the tradition within role-playing game design of pilfering one another's mechanics and building new things out of them.
Sure.
And I really learned how just letting go of that worry and embracing it, how to do that well, by watching Vincent and Mackay Baker, the designers of Apocalypse World.
Yep.
Apocalypse World was released, and it spawned this whole Powered by the Apocalypse movement that I feel like, over a decade of just this huge wellspring of design, and a lot of people feeling really empowered to do game design for the first time by seeing the kind of the modularity of Apocalypse World combined with the really community-oriented mindset of the Bakers. And Monster Hearts, one of my games, is powered by the Apocalypse. Dream Askew is built off of not the mechanics, but the setting of Apocalypse World. And so it's kind of like a hack of Apocalypse World in the opposite way that Powered by the Apocalypse games are.
Okay.
I owe a lot of my career to the Bakers and to their model of generosity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think seeing that in action really got me on board with, okay, I don't need to be protective or fearful of I don't even know what.
That's fair. That's fair.
And not feeling distinctive enough, I guess. Instead, I can really celebrate people working in a similar space to me. There can be that kind of communication back and forth between us. J-Dragon, like you said, took the belonging outside belonging system, the system that's used in Dream Askew, and kind of used that as the chassis for Wanderhome.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've been brought on to do design consulting for 2 of Jay's games since then. So there's really cool back and forth that's possible when you get over yourself and don't be protective.
That's awesome. I love it. That is absolutely awesome. I mean,
I think Keith and I can relate in a certain way because Keith is a empty nester. My son's 18, my daughter's turning 16, and the idea of them going out into the big wide world is no. I created this. I don't want this to be corrupted by someone, but knowing full well that, it needs to go out and have people appreciate them. It needs to grow. They need to do their own thing. And I know it's a wide tangent of experiences, but it's your game, it's your baby. And I know a lot of designers feel that way. And it's a big step. It's one thing to know, Keith and I are taking your game, we're playing with friends, and we're breaking it apart and playing with it and having a good time. But that stays with us, But to suddenly open up EN World, and see someone, take your game and go, well, I'm using this, and you're like, okay, I hope it's good. And turns out it is, but yeah, I can understand that, and I'm sure it's a slew of other things of that, because this is me, this is mine, it's a part of you. But no, it's understandable that and you don't have the power of WotC, and attorneys, if it turns out to be a bad thing, to go, hey, nice try, I want it back.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But no, I think it's inspiring, like, for any designers, other designers listening, or those that are thinking about being designers listening, that you took inspiration from the bakers, who are fantastic people, and their sense of belonging to the community and their sense of community, and you took inspiration from that and returned it back to the community, right? And I think it's fantastic. So
yeah, I think
sorry,
one of the other,
my cat, the show cat, has joined the chat.
just the tail so far.
Just the tail. And her name is Cthulhu. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think the other way that this theme of like not being protective or trying to hold your creations too close. The other way that comes up, the other way that's come up for me is that the Quiet Year has attained a lot of its success and reach because podcasters and actual play groups have used it to set up their D&D campaigns or their their other games campaigns. And so
told you, Scott.
For a large section of the internet, people who saw the adventure, who saw the Other Sea. Sorry, I'm rambling a little bit here.
No, you're good. Ramble.
For a large section of the internet, like people who listened to the Adventure Zone's Other Sea campaign, the Quiet Year is to those people a thing you can do to set up your D&D campaign, which is just absolutely not what I designed it for. And is in some ways is like kind of antithetical to my design goals for the game. Right? Yeah. It is a game that you are a community that's weathered the collapse of civilization, and you have a year of relative peace. You're drawing on a map, and you're being informed by kind of random event cards that you draw along the way. But you're just deciding, like, okay, what does this community do with its resources and its scarcities? How does it make the best of the situation it finds itself in? And you play as not as individual characters, but as the community as a whole, collectively. So it's kind of like if like a 4X simulation game was like abstract poetry. So I'm just filling in. I know you guys know the Quiet Year, but I'm just filling in for anyone who doesn't. But
that's Keith. I'm still a Quiet Year virgin, so please continue.
Okay, wonderful. The game plays through 52 weeks in this year, 52 cards in a playing card deck, and at some point shuffled into winter, shuffled into spades, you have the King of Spades. And that card is a card that ends the game, and it says, "The Frost Shepherds arrive, the game is over." And the text of the game is really clear. Like, when you draw that card, the game ends abruptly. We never find out who the Frost Shepherds were. We never find out if this was a good or bad thing for the community. There's this kind of ominous, maybe the community is wiped out, but we just don't know. The game ends with an unknowable, abrupt ending, because what we care about when we play the Quiet Year is that year of relative peace. It is that moment of regrouping and figuring out, like, how are we going to work together?
Right.
And then some people were like, cool, the game ends and you never find out what happens unless you play a D&D campaign about it.
Right.
And it took me a minute when Friends at the Table and then the Adventure Zone and a few other podcasts or actual play groups used the Quiet Year to set up a campaign of a different game. It took me a minute to be like, wait, am I on board with that? That feels so wrong. And it took me a minute to be like, it's not wrong. It's just different than what I do.
Right.
The reason that I have a career in game design is because I looked at existing role-playing games and then decided to design my own wrong.
Right.
And so it took a minute to let go of like my pretentiousness, my defensiveness, my covetousness, and just be like, you know what? The point is to play games and have fun. People have found a way to use a game that I designed to have fun in a way that I would have never expected. But that's actually cool.
Yeah. Well, a question for you then. The surprise revelation of how your game is being used outside of your expectations. I'm not being familiar with the game itself, but doing a little looking. What about the other end of that? Is it true, that this game, not only is used in like writing workshops, but is it being utilized in classrooms and therapy and community planning? It has kind of like these secondary effects that may or may not have been your intention, but helping people deal with aspects that foster communication, consequences of decisions, especially in a with the younger crowd. This may not be because games. I grew up dyslexic, so games were always a part of the learning process to kind of get you to at least try to be normal in regards to certain things, and the games was the easiest way to help you, reformat, your thinking and whatnot, so to speak. But was that, a bit of a revelation on the opposite end of the coin when that kind of came forth, or was that more something like, this would be kind of great if it happened, and then you find out that it did?
Yeah, it's been a little bit wild, actually. The Quiet Year has been implemented in classrooms from grade 5 through grade 12, as well as a number of university programs. It's somehow wormed its way into sociology degree curriculums, creative writing, environmental studies, leadership studies, peace studies, speculative world building programs, and like game design studies. It's taught in a number of different master's programs. At one point I was hired by the Nova Scotia Department of Environment to adapt the game to be used as one of the modules in their climate change and climate resiliency leadership training program.
Wow.
So it's utilized by like government at like a fairly high for, a maritime province in Canada level. So it's been really interesting to see how the fact that it's like approachable and self-contained means that it's been picked up and utilized in like so many different settings.
Yeah. Which that's crazy. Which I you can see that, but it's, of course, 5th grade me, if that was used to kind of work through, at least dyslexia or like in my son's instance, communication, anxiety, autistic spectrum aspects, when you get to the end and the last card's drawn, and it would be like, well, what happened? Wait, don't walk away from me. What happened? But I would assume that maybe in certain regards to that kind of like, ease that aspect, it may be modified a little bit in regards to younger children, which I assume is fine because the ending isn't the purpose. It's like you said, the community aspect, the year of that, of peace. That's the focus that builds the foundation. So,
well, I can tell you that's what happened when I ran this at a convention 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Earlier this month, I ran at a convention in North Carolina, and I had a board game player that showed up who thought they might be playing a board game, although they didn't read the game description I pitched. I had to tell them it's a storytelling
Yeah.
card cartography game. And once they kind of got into it, they're like, this is good. And they had a grand time playing. And then I warned everybody when the last card comes up, or when the game ending card comes up, and I showed them what the card looked like and, you know, what was going to happen. I said, and the curtain's going to close, the stage is going to go black, and the game is going to be over. I said, and then as we're packing everything up and putting everything away, I said, you can spitball and speculate what happened, but not in-game play. But yeah, and then that board gamer was kind of like, when we got to that card, he's like, well, shit. He was mad. I mean, he was genuinely pissed off.
To be perfectly honest, what popped in my head right now is that Pablo Escobar meme from Narcos. You know, him standing and looking away in the distance in 3 different scenes, just predicating, what happened? Wait, what happened? Tell me what happened.
Yeah, he was genuinely pissed off. He's like, I want to know what happened. I'm like,
well,
speculative fiction, my friend. Figure it out in your head what happened.
Then your work here is done.
Yeah. Your design, great. I have run this game a bazillion times. As I said, this is the original first printing. Like, I don't even have the updated cards. I mean, or the updated rules. I mean, like, I still run the original stuff. So,
but yeah, so I mean, obviously something to be extremely proud of. And that's gone above and beyond, you know, what you set out to do. And and from the sound of it, it's got wheels, it's got legs, you know.
Yeah.
Has there been any thought or intention of creating something to move off of that? I mean, obviously you don't need to come back and do like The Quiet Year 2, but you know, has there been any ideas or premise that may, you know,
is there an evolution
branch off it? Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, I have been toying around with a adaptation of it that is about being on a generation ship, or actually you play collectively as the generation ship. The final card is like the passengers wake up, they've reached their destination.
I don't like sci-fi, but this appeals to me for some odd reason.
I'm not totally sure if it'll ever materialize, because there's some kind of like, wait, but what is everything before that card? What does that actually look like? How do you play? There's a lot of kind of questions, but that's something that I've been toying with. But years ago, I actually collaborated with another designer, Mark Diaz-Truman, to release a game or a version. Sorry, to release a companion game, a sister game to The Quiet Year. It's called The Deep Forest, and it is a post-colonial weird fantasy game where you play as monsters who have driven away the humans who are attempting to colonize the land, and you have a year to try to recover and rebuild and figure out how, like, as a collection of monstrous species, you move forward before at the end of the game the heroes arrive, the game is over. So
you
this
scratch Roanoke on the tree as you leave.
Yeah. And so it was fun to design that. Mark Diaz-Truman is a Latino designer, and one of the reasons that I was interested in designing this game is that I was interested in addressing kind of a major pitfall in The Quiet Year's design framing, which is that The Quiet Year is a game about community and working with the land that you're on with no consideration of like whose land that might be. I think there is some kind of like as a settler, as like a white person living in Canada, that was something that I hadn't really considered. Like, how do we bring history and that kind of like rootedness into a game that is about community and land? And and change. And so that felt like maybe a shortcoming or just like an oversight in the design of the game. That I was like, I would love to explore that or address that in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And so working with a designer of color who kind of brought in indigenous New Mexican perspective to design and asking like, how can we reimagine this to be a game that reflects the experiences of people who for whom like they wouldn't see themselves in a pioneering story. I think that what I'm trying to say is like The Quiet Year, although it isn't about pioneers, isn't not about them either. And so the Deep Forest was a way to kind of explore themes about indigeneity and colonization, a lens that was missing from The Quiet Year. But also you get to play weird, funky monsters who are trying to figure out what to do during the year in which you have driven the humans back.
Right.
So it's also it's a way of exploring those themes without being didactic or heavy about it. About still, it's still feeling like a game.
Right. Yeah. And I think that
sounds like a win.
I mean, that's an overarching theme I'm seeing in your games is, handling these aspects, that are important to you and important to several other people, and how to maintain that connection, with other people, and also, but then open it up as an expression to those who may not be familiar with it, but still make it fun. It's at the end of the day, it's still a game. People are there to, play and have fun. Like with Schoolhouse Rock on Saturday morning, learning something was also a plus. It's a big thing.
Let's talk about new games. So this year you designed Going for Broke, right? A sitcom game, housemates, roommates, right? Like trying to get enough scratch to pay the rent. I've been one of these people in real life, okay? Like I've lived with a group. We've all like had shit jobs, like trying to get enough money to pay the rent and not get evicted and, keep the lights on. Why design a game like this? Like, and who does this really appeal to? Like, I don't know that I want to relive this. I mean, and I love story games. Let's be real. I do love story games, but like, why do I want to relive this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Going for Broke is a game that I first put together in 2013.
Okay.
Though at the time it had a different name. At the time it was called Keep It Sunny because it was It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia based game. Which obviously over the course of its development, I was like, well, I need to lose this IP if I'm going to kind of move forward with it and make it its own unique thing. I had it on the shelf for years and years and ended up pulling it back off the shelf after almost a decade.
Okay.
And started developing it further and playtesting it again. And so the reason that I wanted to publish this game is that it was really low barrier, easy to pick up and play, and it played in less than an hour.
Okay.
What I noticed throughout the last few years is that there's been this huge boom in popularity of role-playing games as a result of things like Dimension 20, Critical Role.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people who have heard of role-playing games, watched them played, are super excited about the idea of them, but don't know how to play themselves and don't feel like they can make that leap. People know that I'm a game designer, and so I've had people approach me a bunch of times, like friends, and been like, hey, you design role-playing games. Would you run a role-playing game for us? And I would begin to be like, yeah, that'd be awesome. It'll take about 4 hours, and I would just immediately see the dread on their faces.
Yeah.
And I was like, 4 hours for the first session. Now, most games, of course, there's many sessions, and many of those sessions are going to roll longer than 4 hours. And you do need to read at least one book, or in the case of some games, 3 or an infinite number of books.
Right.
And so what I was really noticing was I didn't have a lot of games that were easy to reach for, to say like, yeah, I'd love to run you your first role-playing game. We could do it right now. And so
Okay.
in terms of like, why did I publish Going for Broke? It's like, I wanted a game that I could just leave in my purse, not think about, but then could grab and run at the drop of a hat in less than an hour. So that's part of the pitch for why you'd want to play this game. But in
Okay.
terms of like the themes, why would I want to tell stories about people probably in their like mid-20s who are marginally employed, constantly broke, flailing in life in every imaginable way, making stupid decisions and scrambling to try and get together enough money to make rent every month. When I finally have enough distance from that moment in my own life that I can like breathe a sigh of relief. And I mean, that's a good question. I think either that sounds fun to you or it doesn't.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair.
I think that part of it is though that like, it's fun to tell stories about fuck ups who make bad choices. And those kinds of characters, we can love them and be happy to throw them under the bus at the same time.
I feel like it's a Harold and Kumar moment. Like, are they going to White Castle before they pay the rent or after they paid the rent? Or they just don't pay the rent and they get pot? I mean...
Yeah. This is Scott. Yes, we cut out originally, but I'm back. I had to step away for a moment. But safe to assume you're talking about the coming game, the new game.
Going
what's
for
it called?
Broke, yeah.
Going for Broke, yeah.
We were exploring why I or anybody else would want to play a game of like struggling to pay the rent and going back into our early 20s
Yeah.
But I mean, Avery brings up a good point. Like, you know, you either want to or you don't, but like the whole idea of it is, I mean, it's kind of appealing. Like,
well, I mean, it's, you know, in dealing with like, you know, more traditional games, there's two types of people. There's people who love it when the critical hit table come out, and then there's me who gets up and starts applauding when the critical fail table comes out. You know, I'm more interested in the flaws that I get to pick as opposed to, you know, the positive traits.
I'm a column B kind of guy.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, if, I'm beyond, you know, my teenage years of the power fantasy. That I don't really have any interest in that. You know, and it's has its place in all games, but I'm not really that interested in. Now, I love my Dungeon Crawl games that I'm currently playing in. You know, but I'm not trying to relive that. You know, that specific moment where, you know, we were, you know, kicking ass and chewing bubblegum and we're all out of bubblegum. And so it's the flawed aspect of that. And again, but I mean, you know, would it be something to be like, hey, do you want to remember the time where you barely could make rent, you're eating ramen and, you know, and then you should have broken up with your girlfriend 3 weeks ago, but for some reason you just didn't. You know, yeah, I mean, it's you know, I could say no, but I know once I would be in there, I'd be like, oh God, I know exactly how to do this character. Let's go. But I now that kind of rolls into a question, you know, I have regarding, you know, Monster Hearts. Is so it, you know, it again, it does kind of encompass, you know, the ideals and the values that you're searching for within your games, you know, community, identity, but of course it treads into other aspects of, you know, love, you know, sexuality, things such as that. But, you know, but you see that in other games that utilize this foundation of, you know, those teenage years, you know, to touch upon these things. You know, you see it here, you know, you see it in like Masks, you know, where, you know, these, you know, monsters and supers, you know, hey, I want to play monster and play super. That's great. But the focus though is, you know, I was talking to Keith earlier, like in Buffy, you know, the enjoyment is not going out and being the slayer and dealing, you know, death to all vampires. These are people who love the love triangle, you know, the tension of that in these stories. You know, the Vampire Diaries, you know, my wife loves that. And, you know, I'll sit through several episodes when she was watching it and I'm like, are there vampires? Because I mean, there's a lot of good-looking people here, you know, going through good-looking people problems, and I get it, but I mean, you know, somebody needs to bite someone's neck here. Otherwise, you know, this is different.
This ain't no vampire show.
But again, you know, venturing back to those, you know, it's one thing to go back to your 20s when you can afford anything, but you know, when you were a teenager and you thought you knew everything, and you know, but everything didn't make sense, and no one understood you. You were searching for identity. You were searching for people to accept you for who you are. You know, you're dealing with forlorn love, you know, and just, you know, and all of these things I guess my question is there's a draw to that. And I'm just trying to understand, like, you know, if you told me, hey, Scott, you can go in a time machine and go back to your teenage years, I would, after I was done tying you up and putting cement on your feet and saying, no, destroy that time machine right now. I never want to go back. But still, there's this draw. So, I mean, I guess, what is it about that? I guess, do you have an idea why there's all these wonderful games that are dealing with adults going back and playing kids, and there's no end to them, and not just in, you know, the scope of your game, but I mean, even something as the basic premise of like kids on bikes, you know, the Stranger Things thing that may have taken off from that, but it's always been there. But I don't know, what do you think is the draw for that from the adults to go back and use that as the foundation?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And it's interesting to talk about it immediately after the question of why would I want to play a comedy game about somebody scrambling to, you know, keep their house afloat.
Right.
But I think the common theme with both of those is like, we have these messy, complicated, difficult, but also like when we look back at them, like really like we feel nostalgic about it. Like these time periods in our lives that are, they're complicated and they're full of contradictions, and they were interesting, but also chaotic and hard times in our lives. Right. But when we're done with those parts of our lives, it's not like we can be like, okay, well, let's just put that in a box, put it in the back of the storage room, and never think about it again.
Right.
Like, I think part of the premise is like those experiences are still with us and they're still unresolved. Yeah. And stories are a way to play with those themes in a way that can feel really like cathartic, I think. Yeah. And so like, why would we want to go back to our teenage years and play a game like Monster Hearts, which you're teenagers who are secretly monsters? That monstrosity is both literal and metaphorical, right? You're a werewolf because you have anger problems, but you're also a werewolf because under the full moon, you turn into a wolf and you rip people to shreds. It's like a both and situation. And since you're a teenager, you're like a hormonal mess of a monster. Yeah. And it's like a way of exploring lots of the pathos of being a teenager, lots of like the shame and confusion. It's like a messy and fraught subject matter. Right. I think that's interesting to us because those are times in our own lives that didn't make a lot of sense, that we haven't given ourselves enough opportunities to go back and think about in interesting or rewarding or non-therapeutic contexts. Yeah. And so getting to go back and play with that source material from our own lives, I think lets us re-experience it in a way that's cathartic, exciting. Right. And I think that in both the cases of, you know, Going for Broke and Monster Hearts, it's a question of like, well, do you want to play role-playing games that are close to home? Or do you want to play games that feel, you know, fantastic and that have a bit of distance from your lived experiences? And I think both answers are great. If you're like, I want to play a cool elf who can do backflips and has a really big sword, and I don't want to ever think about my home life problems, right? That's great. Yeah. And if you're like, I want to have my character suffer, and I want to suffer, I want to get into all the pathos, I want to have every hard feeling, I want to feel shook by this game, I want it to like linger on the backs of my eyelids for weeks or months, that's also great. And I think I'm designing games that are like in the middle, but closer a little bit to that side.
Sure.
Because that's where I like to play.
Right. No, and for a lot of us, I can't speak for everyone, but I would say, both Keith and I, it's what's the flavor of the month. Sometimes we like to walk away from a game like, Alice is Missing and go, again, what just happened? This was a huge impact, and you need to decompress, and and it sits with you. But then, at the other side, someone can go, "Hey, would you like to play Alice is Missing again?"
That was a very heavy
but
game.
yeah, it was heavy, but it was fun.
Yeah.
It's that idea of like, why do we go watch horror movies? Realistically speaking, we should not find enjoyment in this whatsoever. We should not find enjoyment in sitting on a rickety old wooden roller coaster, this close to death at every turn. But we do, and it's just because we the emotional impact on both ends is something that I think existed. Looking back in the history of role playing games, they just existed in the corners because it wasn't okay, to talk about these things and express these things. And now, thankfully, it's become that. I mean, it's still obviously hitting, against some people, and eventually some of those people will move on. But it's the expansiveness of role playing games of being just, hey, all we're doing is sitting around rolling dice and eating Cheetos. It's more than that for a lot of people, and it's like my son, anxiety, autistic. When I introduced him to Dungeons and Dragons, it had such an impact on him that it helped him move out of this shell into a comfort zone, to where it opened up communication, it opened up friendships, it opened up a feeling more comfortable in his skin. And I couldn't think of anything else out there that would have been able to do that. And it was because it was kind of like it was the broccoli hidden under cheese sauce. It just, it was something that he didn't know he was learning these traits and aspects and learning about himself because he was having fun. And the day that he said, I'm going to be running a game, and I'm just like, wow. I mean, other people be like, okay. But for him, that was such a huge deal. And so, I've always been a huge proponent of role-playing games, opening up these opportunities for kids, and always will speak highly of that and how it can be used in regards to that. So, I mean, your game is used for, helping people, play through identity, emotional, aspects that, may not be accepted in real life, but at this table, it can allow these thoughts to turn and change, and also present it to people who'd be like, I didn't think about it that way. I have a deeper appreciation of who you are. And so it's nice. It's nice to have that opportunity that, that people such as yourself and other people are doing that, regardless if the game appeals to me or not. And that's besides the point. It's the fact that it's there and it's available is the most important thing. All right, I'll get off my soapbox. Keith, your turn.
I do have one question, as we do need to wrap this up because we're at about an hour and a quarter or so.
Sure.
And I think this kind of follows on what we've been kind of talking about. So, of all of the games that you have designed, because I looked at your website, you've been designing games now for 18 years, according to your website? Give or take?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so give or take 18 years. Of all of your darlings that you have created, what is your favorite game and why?
Ooh.
You got to have one favorite. Like, what rises to the top?
Is it the Let's Fuck game?
A place to fuck each other? Is that it? Is that it?
I mean, that's a good answer, just because it's provocative. But no, my favorite game that I've designed is Dream Askew.
Okay.
And the reason that it's my favorite is that it gets to showcase some of my writing that I'm proudest of.
Okay.
Right.
There's a lot that feels really elegant about the design to me. It feels weird to praise my own game, but that's the nature of the question. So
Right.
part of the thing is your character sheet is it's a playbook based game. Your character sheet is a single piece of paper. It's got 3 columns. The left hand column is how you introduce your character archetype to the table. The middle column is character creation. The right hand column is everything you need to play. There's something that just feels really good about like just getting to move left to right across the page of like introducing the characters, creating the characters, playing the characters.
Okay.
So there's little things like that I'm like, oh, good job, past me. Like that feels elegant. That feels dialed in. But I think like it is a really nice blend between really immersive, character-driven roleplay and that kind of more collaborative world building and just imagining a community together. And, you know, The Quiet Year does one of those things really well. Maybe Monster Hearts does the other really well. But I think Dream Askew blends those 2 themes of getting to imagine a world collaboratively and also play my character immersively.
That's a perfect answer. But
Fine, I'm putting it on my Secret Santa wish list.
Now, of course, you know, I'm the goblin in the corner. So I've got a question that's going to be more kind of like, you know, he. So obviously you've got a good foundation. You've played many, many different games, and one cannot live on, you know, bread alone, as the dude with the fabulous abs has said. But do you have? Is there a guilty pleasure game? Is there a game that you just like, you know, that could be technically, you know, your hamburger helper, your comfort food that's only 2 ingredients that may be a surprise to some people? It's just like, you know, like this is something that I just enjoyed playing every once in a while. It could be a video game, could be a game book, an RPG, board game, but just curious, do you have a go-to guilty pleasure?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Mm-hmm. And mind you, we can edit this out too.
Yeah. That's a good question.
Okay.
I feel like for me, I've mentioned that like a lot of the games that I design and that I that I play really frequently are much more both minimalist,
right,
and really immersed in like serious themes and like social themes.
Sure.
So I feel like my guilty pleasure is just kind of like the opposite of that. So it's not like a beer and pretzels game, or it's not like a silly little game. It's like
it's Roll Master. We know.
I have spent many, many thousands of dollars on Magic. When they reintroduced in-person competitive play, and they put for the new regional championship system, which is like basically like a national level tournament. I was like, great, I'm going to qualify for and go to that every single time. I'm going to do as many tournaments as it takes to get there. And I know that there are people who have much more encyclopedic knowledge than I do, but I think I could probably successfily tell you what any card since Fallen Empires does, if you told me the name.
Okay.
And I'm very steeped in the lore of most of the planes in the multiverse. So I think it would be something like that. It'd be either Magic, or for a few years I mentioned it was War Machine,
right?
And especially the like skirmish scale Brawl Machine variant of it. These are my people are often surprised to hear that I when I take a break from structured freeform games about people dealing with their various midlife and early life crises, that I'm like wanting to just immerse myself in multi-thousand page rule sets and really technical strategic kind of games like that.
And play some games where, you know, it's going to be I'm taking your ass down. and just move forward with with all the knowledge of the skirmish game or the magic cards that you have. It's like 4 turns you're going down. Sorry.
Yeah, or I mean, in my case, it's more like, okay, I'm going to get my teeth kicked in.
Yeah, or like a couple of my friends, who are deeply immersed into Magic. It's the chess move of like, the first card's drawn, you're like, okay. We know where this is going. No, fantastic. I mean, yeah, it's we all have our balance. We have to have that wonderful balance that makes us who we are. So yeah, as Keith said, we've kept you for a good hour and a half here. It's been a fantastic conversation, above and beyond our expectations. But before we move on, is there any final words, anything you would like to mention that maybe we didn't talk about, or but besides the the coming game you would like to share with the listeners? I
mean, I feel like we covered a lot of ground. I'll mention that all of my games are published under the imprint Buried Without Ceremony.
Okay.
They're available at buriedwithoutceremony.com. Going for Broke is the most recently released one. The Quiet Year and Monster Hearts and Dream Askew, I think, are the titles that I'm best known for.
Right.
If any of the big theory of game design stuff that I said was interesting to people, there's also links to all of the talks that I've given over the years, because I've given a number of game design talks. So if folks want to hear me talk at length beyond this podcast, they can find those links there.
Awesome.
Excellent. Well, I will definitely throw that to my son and his friends, because they are 18-year-old in their little game design cubby point of their lives, and I get to see little tidbits here or there. But of course, I don't get to see the final project because, sadly, I'm dad.
Yeah.
But
I might get to see it.
Yeah. No. I mean, it's one of those things. He'll share it with you all. But no, not me. I mean, I could say good job. It's like, what? Is something wrong with it? And then down the father-son rabbit hole spiral you go. But Avery, thank you so much. Definitely appreciate you taking the time. Glad that I changed the time when I sent it to you to the proper time, and you weren't sitting here for an hour waiting for us.
That would have been horrible, because we're totally professional.
But yeah, so yeah, but no, all the information you mentioned, we will have a link in the description. So you can definitely, get in we'll get in contact obviously through our publisher website, but check out her games, listen to, her, all the wonderful information and advice that I'm sure is there in all the talks that you have. And this has been lovely. Would definitely, love to have you on again. I mean, there's all these questions that both Keith and I had prepared that we didn't cover, half of them. And so, in the future, would definitely like to have, more talks about this. I find it intriguing, and I'm sure others will too. But yeah, you almost made it through before we talked about, the fuck game. But I had to bring it up. So
we had to bring it up at least once,
and
once or twice.
And like all the other games, I'm glad it's there. But yeah. So, well, Keith.
Well, Avery, thank you again for being our guest tonight and joining us. I've found everything fantastically awesome, enlightening. Again, thank you for creating one of my favorite games, The Quiet Year. It's one of my staple games in my go bag. So, again, thank you. Listeners, it's been awesome having Avery. Please visit our website, check out her games, check out her talks. Links are at our website. And with that, we're going to roll on out of here. And you know what to do. Like, subscribe, share on socials, do all that fun stuff. And until the next episode, we're out of here.